What's happening? Happy Thursday to all of you. Thanks for joining me as always. And we're back. The Boston Celtics are about to play a basketball game tonight. It feels like it's been forever since the Celtics were on the floor. Game one, NBA Finals, Celtics, Mavericks, tip-off tonight. Charlie jumps in right out of the gates with a super chat, $10 super chat. Thank you, Charlie. 4 more wins. That is all we need. 4 more wins. Feeling the nerves this morning, and 8:30 can't come soon enough. Let's go Celtics. Abso-freaking-lutely. 4 more wins. We can inch closer and closer and closer to watching this team win an NBA championship, starting with tonight. Charlie, thank you for the super chat. It is very much appreciated, as is your support throughout this last several months. You have been there, thick and thin, almost every single show. Thank you, my man. Let's get into my final thoughts about this series, and I will give you my prediction for this series. The Mavericks are legit. Let's start there. A lot of people looking at the Mavericks, I think, from the Celtics lens, saying there's no way this team can win the series. Oh, there's a way the Mavericks can win this series. The Mavs can absolutely win this series. There's no doubt in my mind that there is a set of circumstances that can unfold that leads us to seeing the Mavericks win a championship and stop the Celtics from hanging banner 18. The Mavericks are legit. They're 16-2. That's how they finished their regular season. Since they acquired Daniel Gafford at the trade deadline, they put him in the starting lineup March 7th, okay? And since March 7th, the Mavericks are 28-9. The only team that has a better record since March 7th is the Boston Celtics. So this Mavericks team is damn good. Luka is a special offensive player. Almost 49% from the floor, 38% from 3 in the regular season. He averages, let's round it up, 34, 9, and 10. 34, 9, and 10 on a nightly basis for Luka Doncic. And of course, it goes beyond the numbers with Luka because he's a straight up stone cold killer. There's no doubt when you watch Luka, he wants to rip your heart out, throw it on the floor, and stomp on it. We saw that as he closed out Minnesota in Minnesota, screaming at fans, trash-talking fans, burying 3 after 3 after 3, just killed the spirit of the Timberwolves within the first 12 minutes of that basketball game. So not only is Luka a special offensive player, he is also wired in a very particular way, which makes him difficult to beat in big games. He's been playing big games since he was like 13 years old. Kyrie Irving, top 20 player this year in the NBA. He was a top 20 guy, and he's been highly efficient in the playoffs. I'm not going to go as far as LeBron did, waxing poetic about Kyrie, but Kyrie is a special offensive player. He's somebody that can kill you from all 3 levels of the floor. You don't want to mess with him. You don't want to give him any kind of space because if he gets going, he can kill you as well. Derek Lively is a rim protector. He's a lob threat. He is a playmaker on the short rolls. He's had a very good rookie season. He has continued to improve throughout that regular season that they had, then into the playoffs. Lively's no joke. Very active big. And active bigs a lot of times give the Celtics some issues. Gafford is a rim protector. He's a lob threat. Derek Jones Jr. is a legit wing defender, and he's a capable three-point shooter. And, of course, when we talk about Luka, we talk about Kyrie, we talk about 2 elite closers in the game. If this series is going to be tight, and we're watching these games be, 5-point games, 3-point games, 4 or 5 minutes left, hold on to your butts. Because the Mavericks with Irving and Doncic, they are perfectly constructed to beat you at the end of games. They will hit difficult shots. You can play great defense. And it's not necessarily the Celtics crumbling in these late moments. Even if the Celtics play well in clutch like they have all regular season and then in the postseason, especially against Indiana, even if the Celtics are playing well in the clutch minutes, it really doesn't matter if Luka and Kyrie are on one. Luka can just destroy you. He can hit a couple of big-time threes, tough threes. You look up at the scoreboard, game is over, that's it. So 2 elite closers, the Celtics want to have some kind of comfortable lead towards the end of these games. You want to be up by, 3 possessions. You don't want to mess around with Irving and Luka. You just don't want to do it. I have a lot more thoughts on this series, but first I want to tell you about Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. Of course, my friend Jeff, who runs Warzone out there in North Kingston, Rhode Island, went by there last weekend with Kelly. Place is great. It is gigantic, 30-plus acres of land. They have all sorts of different games that you can take part in. Every age group, starting at 6+, you show up with jeans, good shoes, long sleeve shirt. Warzone handles the rest. Low-key, casual, 4.9 star rating online because their staff is great. They take care of you. If you're thinking about having a party, maybe for yourself, maybe for your children, check out Warzone. Do something different. Paintball and or airsoft. You can give them a call at 401-228-6366, 401-228-6366, and tell them the Nick Cattle Show sent you. As you watch this video, Celtics fans, we need the thumbs up on these videos. The traffic, of course, people go other places for their Celtics stuff because they see me as just a Patriots guy. A lot of people, we need the thumbs up, we need the comments, and we need you to subscribe to this video so we can build the traffic throughout this finals. So help us out by doing that. Takes a second of your time. You don't have to pay a single cent for it. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review at Spotify and Apple Pods. Let's talk Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum has a chance at redemption. No matter what Jason Tatum does, everybody goes back to the 2022 finals. No matter how many times we see Tatum play great in a big game. Milwaukee a couple years ago, right, in Game 6. Philadelphia last year, Game 7. No matter how many times we see Tatum make the right play, 30, 10, and 6 in the Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana. But all of that seems to be thrown away because people cannot get past the finals against the Warriors. That series for Tatum almost lives in infamy, right? Because nobody can get over it. This is Tatum's chance. If Tatum goes out there and he dominates, and I'm not just talking about scoring, we'll get to that in a minute, but if Tatum goes out there and he dominates this series, or he plays very well, and the Celtics, they win a championship, that is Tatum's redemption. It is his chance against the Dallas Mavericks, against Luka Doncic, to prove to the basketball world that he is the face of the NBA, especially when it comes to American-born players. He can set that status for himself if he gets that redemption in this finals. And Tatum has to win. He has to win against Derrick Jones, and he has to win against P.J. Washington. If those are the matchups that the Mavericks are throwing at Jason Tatum, Tatum has to take advantage. He has to win those matchups the majority of the time, whether it's scoring or it's doing some other things like playmaking. Tatum needs to win against Jones and Washington, possession in, possession out. He needs to make it very tough for Dallas to figure out how they can defend him, because Dallas has a lot of other people to worry about, as we'll talk about a little bit later. If Tatum gets going, if Tatum gets hot, I said it earlier this week, if Tatum shoots well in this series, the Celtics win this series, and I think the Celtics could win comfortably if Tatum is knocking down shots. If Tatum is winning these one-on-one possessions, if he's creating plays for his teammates, the Celtics are going to have a great chance of winning this title. This is his chance. And the one thing about Tatum that I don't want to see Tatum hunting mismatches to the point of hurting his team. Do not hunt certain matchups to the detriment of your team. We've seen this sometimes. Sometimes Tatum is so hungry to go after a defender that it becomes an ISO show, and the rest of the offense is watching as he inevitably pulls up for an 18-footer that he misses. Tatum cannot do that this series. He cannot take the bait and try to make this about him and make this about isolation, one-on-one, I'm going to get into my bag. Tatum can't do that this series. He can't get sucked into the isolation vortex. He needs to become a playmaker. If he has the opportunity to find teammates for open shots, that's what he has to do. And I've said this throughout the postseason. I think Tatum has mostly done that. There have been possessions, there have been stretches, there have been quarters where Tatum gets a little bit too ISO heavy and he settles for some shots. I expect that to happen every single series. Unfortunately, Tatum's not flawless, but who is? So, yes, there will be some shots in this finals by Tatum that drive you crazy, but we have to accept that. We have to acknowledge it. We have to embrace it. We have to understand that those shots are going to happen. But if Tatum 85, 90% of the time is cooking and cooking correctly with the right ingredients, this team is almost impossible to beat. So when Tatum, instead of getting sucked into that ISO vortex, if he decides to make it about his teammates and to not only be a scoring machine, but look at playmaking as he has for the vast majority of this postseason, if he continues to play the game correctly, he is going to be a migraine for the Mavericks. It's as simple as that. Don't try to get all of your offense in one trip. Don't go bananas one-on-one. Make the right play. Approach it the way you have been. And if you do that, you'll be just fine. Meanwhile, the Mavericks, they need to make shots because the Mavericks, they're not good in transition defense, folks. So if the Mavericks are struggling to make shots and the Celtics get the defensive rebound, we'll get into rebounding in a little bit. But if the Celtics can corral that rebound and get out into transition, Dallas is in trouble. The Mavericks are not good in transition. Luka Doncic is awful in transition defense. So when you look at the transition defense in this series, the Mavericks, that could be a major weakness for them. The Celtics, they step up their defense. They make these shots difficult. They get the rebound. They get out in the fast break. And then all of a sudden, they're putting up some easy points. And the more easy points you put up in a finals game, the better off you are. You don't want to make it difficult on yourself. So the Mavericks, they need to make shots or they're going to get stuck in transition hell, which is what they don't want. Let's get to the rebounding. The Celtics, they have to defensive rebound. Michael Pina at The Ringer wrote this: the only team that grabbed a higher percentage of its own missed shots before the conference finals was the Knicks. The Mavs posted an offensive rebound rate, 32.5%, that would have also ranked second during the regular season. This was a big deal. After the trade deadline, the Mavs ranked 24th in the regular season. For all the talk about their amazing crunch time effort in dueling superstars, second chance points were a saving grace against the undersized Thunder and a Clippers team that was pummeled with Zubats on the bench. This sets up a showdown against a unit that is not vulnerable on the glass. The Celtics have grabbed 77% of their opponents' missed shots and allowed 8.9 second chance points per 100 possessions, which is tied with the Pelicans for best in the playoffs. They are elite at limiting points per miss and putback opportunities, too. At the same time, assuming Boston sticks a non-center on Gafford and Lively, both bigs will have plenty of chances to bum rush the offensive glass. Rebounding is going to be critical. Dallas is not the greatest offense in the world, folks. They have two special offensive players, but they're not one of the greatest offenses we've seen, right? Kyrie's been very efficient. Luka is incredibly difficult to deal with. But the Mavericks, their ability to grab offensive rebounds and get those second chance points, that has really catapulted them to the finals. That saved them, as Pina wrote, in the first couple of rounds. So the C's have to make sure that they are solid on the glass. And the Celtics' defensive rebounding is just going to be a huge point of emphasis that we should not overlook. Meanwhile, the Celtics' offensive rebounding has been pretty good as well. So if the Celtics' offensive rebound as much as Dallas offensive rebounds, then we can look at this and say maybe the Celtics can cancel out those second chance points by getting their own second chance points. But you don't really want to play that game. You want to be responsible and disciplined on the defensive glass and make sure you're not giving Dallas easy points, because that would be a pathway to losing this series. Will the Celtics play double big with Horford and Porzingis? I think it's an interesting question. You know, the Mavericks, they have not faced big and skilled teams, right? I mean, when you look at Minnesota, Karl Anthony Towns, he's a big unknown. He shows up when he wants to show up. So we can't sit back and say to ourselves, well, Towns is one of those upper echelon kind of guy. He hasn't shown that, right? Minnesota, their offense was Anthony Edwards or bust. Rudy Gobert is not good offensively. Again, Towns is in and out. When you look at the Clippers, they're a guard and wing-dominated team. James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. We're not talking about skilled bigs across the board. When you look at Oklahoma City is undersized. Chet Holmgren is very skilled, and he's obviously very tall, but he had a bad series against Dallas. He's young. It was his first time in the NBA postseason. So if the Celtics decide to throw Horford and Porzingis out there, for 5 to 10 minutes a game, it'll be fascinating to see how Dallas responds to that. I would imagine they'd play Lively and Kleba, but it'd be very interesting to see how the Mavericks deal with the Celtics going double big, because Porzingis and Horford, highly skilled guys, as we know. They can stretch the floor. They can create for their teammates at times. They can post up smaller players and take advantage. They can defend relatively well against some mismatches. So I'm interested to see if Joe Mazzulla goes double big for stretches in this series and how Dallas can respond to that. Again, as you watch this NBA Finals preview, Celtics Mavericks starting tonight, Game 1, don't forget to give us that thumbs up. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Those 3 things don't cost you anything. Take a second of your time, and they help the show a ton. Will the Celtics also decide to go small every once in a while? Celtics can go double big as long as Porzingis is healthy. We'll get to that later. But they can go double big with Horford and Porzingis, but they also can play small. They can easily put Jason Tatum at the 5. And that would be interesting to watch. Tatum at the 5 would be able to switch much better, make life difficult for Luka, but also could get back in recovery on Derek Lively and make it difficult on Lively to create for his teammates on the short roll. So there's a lot of different options that Mazzulla has at his fingertips. He can go double big, huge lineup. He can also go small and put Tatum at the 5. Very, very compelling decisions to be made by Mazzulla in this series. I think we'll see both. I would not be surprised if we see stretches of double big, and I would not be surprised if we see stretches of Tatum at the 5. Would not be surprised at all by that. Let's talk about the others. P.J. Washington shot 47% from 3 against Oklahoma City. Against the Lakers in Minnesota, he shot just over 28%. Since the trade, Washington has shot 31.4% post-trade deadline from 3 for the Mavs. Derrick Jones, he's been hot from 3 all postseason. He's been ridiculous, shooting 39.6% from 3 this postseason. And in particular, the Celtics have to make sure to watch out for Derrick Jones in the corner and P.J. Washington in the corner. We talked about that. Luka, we went over this earlier in the week. For those that weren't with us, Doncic loves creating corner threes. He made more passes to the corner than any other player in the NBA this year. He absolutely loves finding open corner threes. He'll suck the defense in. He'll manipulate the guys across from him. He will find ways to kick it out to the corner. Celtics have to make sure they're difficult on those corner threes. They can't let Derrick Jones Jr. shoot 40% from 3. That would really hurt them. They can't allow Maxi Kleba to shoot 37, 38% from 3. They can't allow P.J. Washington to start knocking down corner threes and feeling good about himself. They don't want the P.J. Washington that played against Oklahoma City. Corner threes, closing out. Now, when you look at the regular season shooting of Derrick Jones, he shot 34%. So he's been hot in the playoffs. P.J. Washington ran cold, then went hot, and then went cold. Derrick Jones, I think, will likely be looking at a lot of Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's been very good defensively, as we know, all season long. It's been his best defensive season as a Celtic from game one up until tonight's game. I just have to imagine that Jaylen Brown will be locked in defensively for this series. It's the finals. It's for a championship. If he was locked in during the regular season, we should anticipate him being locked in tonight and locked in for the rest of the finals. So I think Jaylen Brown will take care of Derrick Jones Jr. when he defends Derrick Jones Jr. Again, let's not forget, there's going to be a lot of switching, a lot of changes and coverages. We're going to see Jaylen Brown defend Luka. We're going to see him defend Kyrie. We're going to see him defend Derrick Jones. We'll probably see him defend Derek Lively and PJ Washington for a few possessions. But if it's Jaylen Brown versus Derrick Jones, I like the Celtics' chances. If it's Jason Tatum against PJ Washington, I like the Celtics' chances. And that begs the question, can the Celtics, can they really hold up enough in ISO situations against Luka and Kyrie when that happens? And can Dallas do enough if the Celtics ISO and say, hey, look, we're fine with Derrick Jones trying to beat us. Go ahead, Derrick, try to beat us. Try to beat Jaylen Brown. Go ahead, PJ, try to beat Jason Tatum. Do the Mavericks have enough to hold up in those ISOs? How much will Maxi Kleber play? I think we could see a decent amount of him. I said this right when the Mavericks won. I would not be surprised whatsoever if Gafford is played off of the floor in this series for the most part. Gafford is not a good matchup with the Celtics. He's just not. So I would not be surprised whatsoever if Gafford is not playing a ton in this series. I think you're going to see a lot of Lively and Kleber, Lively or Kleber. You might have Gafford for a stretch, but I just, even if they try to play Gafford minutes in this series, I think the Celtics will play him off the floor. I just think they will make it miserable for Gafford. So Kleber could be somewhat of an X factor in this series for Dallas because he's a much better shooter than Gafford. He gives you a better chance of defending wings and guards than Gafford does. And it would also create a 5-out lineup for the Mavericks. I mean, the Mavericks could throw out, Doncic, Irving, Jones, Washington, and Kleber, and they can have their 5-out lineup that would try to match up with the Celtics' 5-out lineup. So I think we should anticipate Kleber playing some minutes as long as he's healthy in this series. Speaking of 5-out, the Celtics will play lots of 5-out. Get ready. If you don't like three-point shooting, you're not going to like this series. Celtics are going to shoot threes. They're going to play, I think, a lot of 5-out. They will post up when they have the mismatches. Don't get it twisted. But we're going to see a ton of 5 guys on the perimeter. Dallas does not have enough perimeter defense, in my eyes. The Celtics are going to try to spread them out on the perimeter, go 5-out, and force their perimeter defenders to do the job. They're going to force Luka Doncic to defend. They're going to force Kyrie to defend. They're going to force Jones Jr. to defend against Tatum and Brown. They're going to force PJ Washington one-on-one matchups against guys that can drive against him. They're absolutely going to do that against Derek Lively. So I would expect the Celtics to play tons of 5-out, create those driving lanes, create one-on-ones for Brown and Tatum, allow Brown and Tatum to get to those driving lanes, get to the bucket, and then find a friend. Find a friend. Drive and kick is huge in this series. Rim reads, huge in this series. As long as Brown and Tatum get to the bucket and make the right rim read, Dallas is going to give up threes. And they're going to give up open threes. And they're going to give up some wide open corner threes. 5-out, drive, kick. 5-out, drive, kick. Paint touches. Paint touches. Paint touches. Can't say it enough. If the Celtics are touching the paint and creating threes, not just taking threes, not settling for threes, but if they're touching the paint, they're spraying the ball out, and they're creating open shots, that's the secret sauce. How about Mazzulla? How about the coaching matchup? Did you know that Joe Mazzulla, since he's been the Celtics head coach, is 4-0 against the Mavericks? Obviously a small sample size. But Mazzulla has won every single game against the Mavericks by at least 9 points that he's coached. 4-0, all 4 games, they've won by at least 9 points. Now, you might not think that's a big deal, but before Joe Mazzulla became the head coach and took over for Udoka, Dallas had beat the Celtics 4 straight times. So before Joe Mazzulla, Dallas had won 4 straight. Since Mazzulla, the Celtics have won 4 straight, and all 4 by at least 9 points. Not too shabby. So what's my prediction? I waited until the day of game 1. I look at numbers. I go through matchups. I try to put as much thought as possible into who I think will win. I know a lot of people have said this. So maybe you'll think that I'm just going along with the rest of the crowd. But I honestly believe the Celtics stay healthy, the Celtics win the title. And I think they win the series in 6 games. Why 6 games? I don't think it'll get to a 7th. And I find it hard to believe with Luka Doncic that it'll only go 5. I wouldn't be shocked if it went 5. I'd be more surprised if it went 7 than if it went 5. So I kind of rest in the middle at 6. And I'll tell you why I have the Celtics in 6. Let's start with just more top-end talent and more top-end depth. We've said this all year. I said it when the Celtics traded for Drew Holiday. They have the best top 6 in the NBA. That has been the case the moment they traded for Holiday up until right now. They have the best top 6 in the NBA. They're the most talented team left in this chase. There's no doubt about that. Kyrie's special offensively. Luka is incredibly special offensively. But 1 through 6, Celtics are better. More top-end depth and more weapons. The Celtics literally have 8 guys that can hurt you offensively. And they also have guys that can defend. But when we're talking about offense, we're talking about weapons. Celtics have 8 guys. And that's a lot. 8 guys that can score. Now, some of them score in different ways. It's not like Sam Hauser's going to be an ISO king, but you get the point. More top-end depth, i.e. more weapons. The Celtics are also the better three-point shooting team. And we've talked about math an awful lot this year. And many people, they roll their eyes. They talk about how many threes the Celtics shoot. The math is the math. This past season, wins have never correlated to three-point shooting as much as it did this year when you look at NBA history. More teams are winning more games by shooting more threes. That's how the game has evolved. Whether you like it, I like it, that doesn't matter. That is how the game has evolved. The Mavericks are a top 5 three-point shooting team when it comes to attempts and makes. The Celtics are a top 5 team when it comes to three-point makes and three-point attempts. That's not a coincidence, folks. So the Celtics, they're the better three-point shooting team. They have 8 guys. When you look at the sample size of the entire season, they have 8 guys that can all shoot from 3. The Mavericks have 3 or 4 guys that you can trust. So if we're talking about a series that is going to be a math series, it's going to be about threes. The Celtics have twice as many guys that can shoot threes, good to very good, as the Mavericks have. That's a big time advantage. And then when you look at water meeting its level, the Mavericks, if we look at how they've shot through the playoffs and how the Celtics have shot through the playoffs, I'm left with one question. Will the Celtics get back to their water level? What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the Mavericks three-point shooting, okay? Derek Jones and Kyrie Irving have both shot better in the playoffs than they shot in the regular season. Kyrie is only 1% better. So Kyrie's been Kyrie. Kyrie from 3 has been the same guy in the playoffs as he was in the regular season. Jones Jr. shot 34% from 3 in the regular season. He's shooting 39.6% from 3 in the playoffs. So Jones Jr. is playing above his head from 3. No doubt about that. Luka, meanwhile, he's not shooting nearly as well. He shot 38% from three in the regular season. He's only shooting 34% in the playoffs. Now, we would also look at his prior career high. He's pretty much been a 35% three-point shooter. He was so much better this year at 38.2%. So are we going to see the Luka that was the Luka of the regular season at 38%? Or is Luka going to hover around 35%? That's a huge difference, folks. That 3%, 3 points percentage is just a huge difference. If Luka's shooting 34% from three in this series, it could be very difficult for the Mavs to win. PJ Washington, meanwhile, he shot 31% from three in the regular season. He's shooting 36% from three in the playoffs. So 3 of the Mavericks' top 4 shooters are shooting better from three in the playoffs than they did in the regular season. So you could argue that the Mavericks are shooting better from three than should be expected. So does that mean that they drop down a little bit? Does Luka go up a little bit, but Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington drop back down? That would all even out. Meanwhile, the Celtics have not been shooting like the Celtics, even though they've gone 12-2 in the playoffs, even though they went 9-1 without Porzingis, even though they've been undefeated on the road, even though they've played great in clutch. Their three-point shooting has not been as good in the postseason as it was in the regular season. I'm not counting Porzingis because of the small sample size. But Jaylen Brown has been slightly better shooting three in the playoffs in the regular season. Peyton Pritchard has been much better. Pritchard shooting 7% better from three in the playoffs than he was in the regular season. Derek White, much like Jaylen Brown, slightly above. Derek White, 40.7% from three in the playoffs, 39.6% in the regular season. But if you're a Celtics fan, here's where you should feel pretty good. If water gets back to its level, if the Celtics shoot more like the Celtics of the 82-game regular season versus the 14 playoff games we've seen, Dallas is in trouble. Because when you look at Drew Holiday shot almost 43% from three in the regular season. He's at 39.7 in the playoffs. Al Horford shot almost 42% from three in the regular season. He's shooting under 35%. We all know Jason Tatum. Tatum shot 37.6% from three in the regular season. He's shooting 29% from three in the playoffs. 8.5 percentage points under what he shot in the regular season. And Sam Hauser shot 42.4% from three in the regular season and is shooting about 33% in the postseason. So Sam Hauser is down 9 percentage points. Tatum is down almost 9 percentage points. Horford is down more than 7 percentage points. Holiday is down more than 3 percentage points. Meanwhile, the only outlier on the positive side is Pritchard, who's like a +7. Brown and White are within 1% of what they did in the regular season compared to the postseason. So three of the 7 shooters for the Celtics, 3 of those guys have been better in the playoffs than they were in the regular season. 2 of those 3 within a percentage point. Then you have 4 outliers. Holiday, Horford, Tatum, and Hauser. Outliers on the bad end. They've been well below who they've been as shooters. Which again begs the question, will the Celtics get back to their level? If Brown pretty much stays the same and White stays the same, you have a dip from Pritchard. But if Holiday, Horford, Tatum, and Hauser can get closer to what they shot from 3 in the regular season in this final series, watch out. If those 4 guys can get back to what they were before the postseason began from 3, we're talking about a tsunami of threes. There is, and I'm not telling you this is what's going to happen, but there is a possible story here that the Celtics get back to their normal level, quote unquote, of 3-point shooting and torch this Dallas defense. I'm not telling you that's what's going to happen. They might continue to shoot at this level. They might play a little bit tight because it's the finals. But if the Celtics can get back to what they were in the regular season shooting from 3, they're going to score a ton of points against Dallas. A ton of points. If they're making their threes, that's when this series gets dangerous for the Mavericks. That's when we talk about maybe 5 games or so. Another reason why I have the Celtics beating the Mavericks in 6 games, more versatility on both ends. We've talked about that all year long. The Celtics have interchangeable parts, offensively, defensively. They have a number of guys that can run the offense. They have a number of guys that can drive and kick. They have a number of guys that can pull up from 3. They have a number of guys who can catch and shoot from 3. They've got incredible offensive versatility. And defensively, they're just as good. Defensively, Jaylen Brown can play 1 through 4 in this series. Tatum can play 1 through 5 defensively in this series. Holiday can play 1 through 4. They might even sneak Holiday on Lively for some possessions. We've seen that happen. Derek White, not as versatile because of his size. He's going to be limited to, I believe, Kyrie Irving for the most part in this series. But defensively, offensively, the Celtics are much, much more versatile than the Mavericks. They have a lot of different ways that they can win a basketball game. The Mavericks are the Mavericks. Luka's going to Luka. They're going to lean on Kyrie and Luka. They're going to lean on Lively defensively. And they're going to be who they are. Celtics, they can be a little bit more fluid as to how they do things on both ends because of the roster that Brad Stevens has built. One more thing, the finals experience. The Celtics just have the experience now. It has flipped. You go back to 2022, you had a bunch of cats who never played in the finals. A lot of these guys have now gone through it. Tatum, White, Horford, right? We know Brown. Guys have gone through it. Meanwhile, Dallas, they've got Kyrie who's played in the finals. Luka's played in a bunch of big games overseas, but then that's it. Now, P.J. Washington has never been on this stage. Derrick Jones Jr., he played for Miami, so, he's got a little bit of a taste. Derek Lively, rookie, never tasted the finals before. So it's a different experience level, and hopefully the Celtics take advantage of that. There's one caveat to my prediction. I am assessing this series, and I am picking the Celtics in 6 based off of the belief that Porzingis is going to be relatively healthy and be able to give the Celtics at least 20 minutes a night. If Porzingis is not healthy, if he leaves this series, that changes the dynamic. And I think all of a sudden a 6-game series can easily become a 7-game series and could easily swing towards the Mavs. So that Porzingis calf strain, or whatever the hell we want to call it, I think is very, very important. If Porzingis is healthy and gives them 20 minutes a night, I feel great about them winning this series. Given health for the other guys, of course. But if Porzingis goes out there tonight, doesn't look the same, has to come off of the floor, then it's going to get dicey. I'd probably still lean Celtics, but we're talking about the slightest of margins and probably a 7-game series. Could be a coin flip. So I think they need Porzingis in this series to take care of business within 6 games. So let's hope that Porzingis is out there giving them the 20 minutes. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up. Means the world to me. Like this podcast, like this channel as we continue to build the community. Like, comment, and subscribe. Trying to get to 3,500 subscribers. We're getting closer to 3,300. Let's continue to fight that. So like, comment, and subscribe. Spotify, Apple Pods, rate, and review. Game 1 tonight. Celtics, Mavericks. about 8:35 to 8:40. Probably the tip. So we'll see. We'll see if the Celtics can get the job done. Long layoff. They've had a lot of long layoffs. So hopefully they know exactly what they have to do. They're comfortable with sitting out for a number of days, longer than a week. So hopefully they can, take care of that. And we'll see. But whoa, hold on. Got to stop here. Teresa with a $50 super chat. Just wanted to show my support since I rarely listen live. Love the podcast. Thanks. Thank you, Teresa. We call her Terry on Facebook and Terry on the Patreon page. Terry's an OG. She's been with us from pretty much day one, a $50 super chat. My goodness. Thank you. Thank you, Terry, for that super chat. Can't say enough about your support from the beginning to now, and can't say enough about a freaking $50 super chat. That's one of the highest super chats we've ever had on this show. So I appreciate you, Terry. Can't say enough about you. My goodness. Thank you. I'm knocked over by that one. What a Thursday present. So let's see what happens. Game 1, I got Celtics in 6. Tomorrow, we'll talk about what happened tonight. 11 a.m. Don't forget on YouTube. Until then, this has been the Nick Cattle Show.